Outside, this place appears to be a family entertainment center, but in reality, it's all ferocious, killer animatronic creatures. Anyone who sets foot here meets a deadly fate. It seemed like things would continue this way until one day, a man appeared. Nicholas is driving on the road at high speed. Suddenly, his tire bursts. He gets out of the car to check and discovers that someone intentionally scattered nails on the road, causing his tire to puncture. With no other option, he had to wait to see if another car would come by and ask for help. The weather was hot, so he took out a can of energy drink and enjoyed it. After a while, a car approaches and offers assistance by towing Nicholas's car into town for repairs. On the way, they encountered a female sheriff who was arresting a young girl named Liv. She is being arrested because she intended to set fire to Willy's Wonderland Family Entertainment Center, and she's handcuffed and taken into custody. On Nicholas' side, after his car was repaired, the mechanic demanded $1,000 for the total repair cost. Nicholas wanted to use his credit card, but the mechanic insisted that they only accepted cash. The ATM was not working. The mechanic came up with an idea to help Nicholas by taking him to meet Tex, the owner of Willy's Wonderland. Tex said that if Nicholas agreed to stay overnight and clean the entire center, he would be willing to pay the repair bill. Feeling that the task was relatively easy, Nicholas agreed. Before going in, he only brought his energy drink. Inside, the animatronics were still there, old and creepy. Tex introduced Nicholas to the tasks that needed to be done and gave him a uniform to change. After giving instructions, Tex immediately left and even locked the door from the outside. Inside, Nicholas began to sense that something was amiss, but he didn't pay much attention. He went into the staff room to change his clothes and started the cleaning process. At the same time, Liv's friends arrived to rescue her. The blonde girl used a hairpin to unlock Liv's handcuffs. Liv then told them that she had seen Nicholas with the mechanic, so he must be inside Willy's Wonderland by now. She urged the whole group to rescue him immediately, fearing for his safety. Inside the center, Nicholas continued cleaning and organizing tables and chairs diligently. The animatronics suddenly started moving, intentionally scaring Nicholas. However, he remained unfazed and entered the kitchen to clean up. He put his energy drink in the fridge and then meticulously cleaned the kitchen. At this point, Nicholas's alarm clock went off. Turned out he had set a timer to take a break and have some energy drink. While resting, he noticed a pinball machine. He was about to start playing, but the alarm clock interrupted, signaling the end of his break. Nicholas returned to the main hall to resume cleaning. At this point, the animatronics decided to attack. First, the ostrich Ozzy appeared from behind and pecked at Nicholas's face, causing a scratch on his face, but he didn't flinch and lightly chuckled. He fought back, hitting the ostrich repeatedly with a mop, causing it to die instantly. His clothes were now covered in machine oil from the animatronic, so he decided to change into fresh ones. He planned to dispose of the ostrich, but he discovered that the door was locked. Once again, his alarm clock rang, prompting Nicholas to return to the kitchen to rest and drink some energy drink. Next, he entered the restroom to clean it up, but the animatronics continued to be disruptive, starting to sing loudly. Nicholas went out to check and turn off the power. When he returned, Gorilla Gus suddenly charged at him and attacked. This gorilla was much stronger than the ostrich, and Nicholas's punches and kicks didn't make much of an impact. Nicholas quickly grabbed a plunger, smashed Gus into the mirror, and then threw him against the wall. He propped Gus's head on the toilet bowl and stomped on it repeatedly, making the gorilla the next casualty. Outside, Liv and her friends were pouring gasoline around the area, preparing to set the entire center on fire. At this moment, Liv said that she would go inside first to rescue Nicholas, and her friends should wait outside until she was done and then help her get out. Liv crawled through the ventilation ducts to enter the center. Willy noticed Liv's presence and immediately sent the alligator Artie to attack her. Liv was chased by the alligator, but managed to escape. Outside, her friends, upon hearing the screams, decided to enter as well. They were on the roof, planning their next move, and suddenly the ceiling collapsed, causing the entire group to fall inside. Here, the entire group met Nicholas and tried to explain to him how dangerous the situation was, but he remained silent and continued cleaning. Liv followed Nicholas, telling him about the dark history of the town. She explained that Tex was deceiving him, and the promise to fix his car after cleaning this center was a scam. Tex had been duping countless people like this for the past 10 years. In the past, this center was established by a man named Willie, who was, in reality, a serial killer. He lured families into this center and then murdered them. When their actions were discovered, the police raided the center, but Willie and his accomplices suicide. However, before their deaths, they performed a ritual to transfer memories and souls into a new host, which turned out to be the animatronics. 10 years later, Willie's Wonderland reopened under new ownership with Tex. He started covering up the center's dark past, but then the animatronics began behaving strangely, leading to the center's closure once again. At this point, Willie began to dance, and everyone rushed outside to check. Suddenly, Nighty Night wielded a sword and struck down Leave's friend from behind, ending his life. The group was terrified and fled. The couple hid in a room, but Crocodile Artie was already there waiting for them, and their death was inevitable. Another guy was surrounded by Siren Sarah and Tito Turtle, and under the flashing lights, he met his demise. Outside, Liv was being hunted down by the night. Meanwhile, Nicholas was enjoying his break by playing pinball until the alarm signaled the end of his break. He then swiftly dealt with the nightly night, disarming it, smashing its head against the wall, damaging it severely, and finally finishing it off with a sword strike. To Nicholas, these animatronics were nothing more than child's playthings. Liv now realized who was the real monsters in here. Afterward, they went in search of Liv's friends, hearing screams coming from a room. Nicholas kicked the door open and rushed inside, but it was too late. Liv's friend was eaten by a crocodile. Nicholas immediately engaged in a struggle with it. His punches and kicks had no effect, so he used his strength to force the crocodile's jaws open and extracted its energy core, ultimately defeating it. The man with long hair was the only survivor among Liv's group and was surrounded by Cammy Chameleon, forcing him to hide and call for the sheriff. Upon hearing the news, she quickly rushed there. At this point, the chameleon, speaking with sincerity, claimed to have a kind heart and promised not to harm him if he came out. Hearing that, he decided to come out. Liv arrived, but it was too late, the chameleon using its long tongue to constrict and strangle him to death. Meanwhile, the sheriff and her deputy were on their way. She briefed the young police officer that going to that center was extremely dangerous because she knew that the animatronics were possessed. Tex initially intended to destroy the center, but the people he hired for demolition were killed by the animatronic. When the animatronics were hungry, they would often hunt people in the town. To protect the townsfolk, she and Tex decided to make a deal with them. They would regularly provide food for them by scattering nails on the road to puncture people's tires, and then bring those people into the town. They would tell them that if they cleaned the center, their cars would be fixed by morning. Many people had lost their lives because of that promise, but one lucky girl, Liv, managed to escape. The sheriff had raised and nurtured her, and now Liv knew how much harm the animatronics had caused, so she had decided to burn down the entire Willy's Wonderland. Back inside the center, the chameleon found itself in trouble because Nicholas appeared. Just as it was about to attack, the alarm rang again. Nicholas quickly handed Liv a knife for self-defense and then rushed back into the kitchen for a break, enjoying an energy drink and playing pinball. Meanwhile, Liv was struggling with the chameleon. Her legs were bound, and the knife seemed ineffective. Just at that moment, Nicholas returned and used a cord to strangle the chameleon, then forcefully smashed its head, causing significant damage. He was about to take the chameleon outside to dispose of it when the other two animatronics appeared, but they couldn't stop him. Once outside, the sheriff arrived. She was extremely fearful of Willy and tried to calm him down, hoping he wouldn't get angry. She instructed her deputy to restrain Nicholas. After that, she quickly ordered her deputy to take Liv away while she stayed behind to keep watch. As the young police officer drove for a while, he was unexpectedly pulled out of the car by Tito Turtle. Liv was planning to shoot it, but she realized the gun was out of ammunition. Her only option was to use the gun as a club, striking the turtle and then quickly making her escape. At this point, while Nicholas was still tied up, the chameleon and Siren Sarah arrived, intending to eliminate him. Despite his bound hands, he managed to knock down Siren Sara and used his knee to crush her head. After freeing himself from the restraints, Nicola approached the chameleon and defeated it as well. Then, he calmly returned to his cleaning duties as if nothing had happened, all the while enjoying his pinball game. After his break, Nicholas carried the bodies of the animatronics outside to dispose of them. When the sheriff saw this, she became extremely furious. Nicola waved a friendly gesture, but she used her gun to threaten him and forced him back inside. She claimed that his death was necessary to maintain the peace of the town. She argued that if he had died earlier, the group of Liv's friends wouldn't have had to sacrifice themselves to save him. She called Willie to the scene, but the outcome was not what she had expected. Willie Weasel, the center's boss, appeared from behind and used its deadly claws to strike her down. Willie's claws were exceptionally dangerous, and it attacked Nicholas before he could react. Nicholas struggled to defend himself, but Willie's superior strength and sharp claws left him wounded. He eventually fell into a ball pit. Willie, thinking Nicholas had died, so it turned and walked away. However, shortly afterward, Nicholas crawled out of the ball pit, not yet defeated. Nicholas went back into the kitchen, gathered several wooden planks, and bound them together. He then put all the energy drink cans into a bag to create a weapon. Approaching Willie, the animatronic attacked again, but its claws had no effect anymore. Nicola used the bag filled with energy drinks to strike repeatedly at Willie's body and sides. He followed up by repeatedly hitting its head with the wooden plank, causing severe damage. Finally, he used his strength to remove Willie's head and throw it away to ensure it could no longer harm anyone. The next morning, the mechanic had finished repairing the car and handed the keys to Tex. They were excited about to drive away, but they discovered the door was unlocked. Upon entering, they were shocked to find Nicholas peaceful and the center had been cleaned. Tex couldn't believe his eyes and returned the car keys to Nicholas. As Nicholas walked out, he encountered Liv, who had nowhere else to go and decided to leave with her. Tex was happy that all the animatronics were dead and planned to reopen the center. However, to his surprise, Siren Sara was still alive. She ignited a fire, causing the car to explode. Nicholas and Liv left the town.
This is the end of the movie. If you enjoy it, please like and subscribe to support my channel. Thank you for watching.